cape.
Thank you for joining me on another lore video. Today we're talking all about Khorne and his demons. So to really introduce what this character is, we need to understand what it means to be an entity of chaos. See, there are the 8 mortal realms that we know of in the Age of Sigmar. However, in addition to that, there is also the realm of chaos. This is a separate realm, so there's really 9, but it's a separate entity where the powers of chaos are constantly warping and vying for control, and they're trying to infect the mortal realms to be more like themselves. While there are a multitude of chaos gods, really 4 stand out as being the biggest players in the realm of chaos. These are Nurgle, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, and of course today's topic is Khorne himself. Now what it means to be an entity of chaos, this is, you have a physical form, but it's one that you can't enter the mortal realms of real space without certain things being met. By that I mean, Khorne himself isn't just going to walk through a door and start smacking people's faces. What he does is he sends his minions and his influence into the world, and he can kind of absorb that realm if it's fully conquered. Which kind of brings us to our next point, which is Khorne demons, or demons of Khorne as they're described in the app and War Scroll battalions and things like that. And what these are essentially is Khorne is kind of this grand demon, if you will, and he breaks off a piece of himself, which then becomes the demon that we know. So smaller pieces are little guys like bloodletters. Something slightly bigger might be a herald. Whereas there's the major demons that we know, such as the bloodthirster. Giant things that march across the mortal realms. Now, truth be told, these demons don't last very long in the mortal realms. They tend to dissipate. However, if you take over realm gates and have heavy demonic influence, you can actually extend the amount of time with which they are able to last in the mortal realms. So that's really what they want. They want to fully conquer a realm, poison it with the god's power so that Khorne himself and the demons can fully come into the land itself and stay there permanently. So that's kind of what Khorne wants. It's what all the demons want themselves. But let's talk about him himself. What makes him unique? Well, to do that, we have to really discuss what Khorne is. And by that I mean what he represents and what gives him his power. So Khorne himself represents war, bloodshed, anger, aggression. He also represents martial prowess, like he respects the warrior. So if there's someone who's not necessarily like a berserker, but he's just a very skilled, powerful warrior with discipline, Khorne will honor that as well. Like a lot of primitive cultures, Khorne encourages his followers to display their acts of aggression and championship by presenting skulls. This is something that a lot of African tribes used to do. They used to kill their enemies, clean off the skulls, and have them as trophies. Same thing here. The more skulls you collect, the more renowned you are in Khorne's eyes. Khorne is also referred to as the blood god, and there's a very popular moniker known as the Khorne Creed, as a lot of people call it, which is that Khorne cares not from where the blood flows, only that it flows. By that, what they're saying is the act of war and aggression is what gives Khorne his power. So it doesn't actually matter if his forces are the ones who are getting slaughtered and beaten, as long as somebody is getting slaughtered and beaten. What this kind of works out to be on the tabletop is it doesn't matter who is getting hurt. If somebody is getting hurt, Khorne is getting more powerful and it pleases him. So backing up, like we said, all those things that are happening in the mortal realms give Khorne power. The wars, the bloodshed, the murder, the rage, all those things are really energizing him. So naturally, you can imagine that this leads to him getting really, really powerful once the Age of Chaos began and war kind of went into overdrive. Now, it's true that the other 3 Chaos Gods are all vying for ultimate control, and they do each have their time in the spotlight. However, it is also made very clear that Khorne tends to be in ascendancy most often, which is really easy to understand given the nature of the mortal realms and that war is just a constant way of life. So we know what Khorne is, being the kind of grand chaos god that he is, that he views in parts of himself into the world, which we know as demons. We know what he wants, which is ultimate control of a realm, and we know what powers him. So how does his persona come out on the tabletop? Well, there's a few interesting ways. The most obvious of which is an army called Khorne demons, or demons of Khorne. This is literally strictly his army there. There's a lot of really cool bonuses that are very thematic. In addition to the demons, there's also the Khorne Bloodbound, which are essentially Khorne mortals. They're like men and women who have dedicated themselves to the Blood God in different capacities. Some are fully human, so you'll have people like Blood Reavers who are just ordinary dudes who are just really, really angry and run and fight and chop stuff up. All the way to something like Valkia, who was a human at one point, but gave herself over to Khorne and became somewhat of a human demon in the middle hybrid type thing. What makes followers of Khorne really interesting is that the more that they do for him, the more he rewards them. It's interesting to note as we start to look at the Chaos Gods that they reward their followers in very unique and interesting ways. So Khorne himself, say you're just a Blood Reaver at base level and you start to honor Khorne in such a way that you gain his favor. You might be rewarded with physical stature, so you get larger and more muscular at first, so you're able to do more killing if you keep on that path. You may be rewarded with a unique weapon, an Axe of Khorne. One day you might be honored by getting a flesh hound, which is literally a demon, that he's your pet. You have to master him at all times, but he is your pet to go to battle with. If you're a really impressive champion, then a juggernaut will come out of the ground and you can ride a juggernaut like cavalry into battle. So there's all kinds of things like that where if you honor Khorne or show that he's worth maybe an investment, he will give you better weapons and armaments and pets and anti-magic techniques and things like that to improve the way that you are able to do his will. It's also important to note here that the way in which you fight also matters to Khorne. So for example, Khorne is all about mostly melee combat, but getting in there and fighting hand and fist. So things like archers, artillery, certainly magic are all unheard of. Khorne hates the wizard. He doesn't think the magic has any kind of honor in it when you win, so he doesn't do that at all. He does, however, have great magic resistance, meaning typically models who are in Khorne's favor tend to have ways to dispel things. Even though they can't cast spells, they can dispel them like a wizard, which is really unique. And all these assets come together to make a really interesting force where you can have mortals fighting next to demons, but a lot of their buffs have the Khorne keyword, meaning your Bloodbound and your demons can get buffed by the same thing, even though one's demon, one's mortal. They love aggression, melee combat, getting in there and causing as much damage as possible. They have very few ways to handle damage coming back in because Khorne is not exactly a defensive-minded person. And I have to say, I really think that the way that they made the rules for some of his models really play out well on the tabletop. Stepping away from the models themselves and how they perform on the tabletop, I have to say that Games Workshop has supported this Chaos God more than any other. Khorne is sort of the poster child that they use for the Armies of Chaos itself. By that I mean when Age of Sigmar was released, the Khorne Bloodbound came in the starter set. They were highly popularized by a new model range. The models look phenomenal. They look absolutely beautiful. The Bloodthirster kit that came out shortly before was fantastic. And so they really support this line very, very well, and they have fleshed out the diversity of Khorne followers, meaning they're not all murderous psychopaths who can't work together, because that doesn't make for a very interesting force if everyone's like that. There's this wide swath of noble warriors trying to conquer, make a name for themselves, people who want ascendancy into demonhood, people who have been forced into the life that they're on right now. So it's really, really fascinating. They fleshed him out quite a bit and made him a very interesting chaos character. On a note that brings up the fluff, I want to say that Khorne has really staked his claim in the realm of fire. It seems like Akshi is largely conquered by Khorne warbands. I don't know if they're maintaining control very well, but they are like scavenging. When we meet Korgus Kull, the leader of the Khorne Bloodbound in the books, he lets us know that his sole goal is to conquer the realm of fire. And he's a powerful dude, and there's several powerful My Lord of Khorne just like him all roving around Akshi as they attempt to bridge the gap between the Chaos world for Khorne and the realm of fire. Now, going backward in time, it's also interesting to note that Khorne was actually involved in the battle that struck down Nagash, which is really, really awesome. That he himself didn't come, but all his bloodthirsters and all kinds of demons of his were there. So there are people who are, or not say people, but there's demons who are fighting now that were actually at the battle versus Nagash, which kind of, the fact that they don't age the same way makes things really, really interesting for narrative games on the tabletop. So my hope this week is that you'll take some time, try to read over some literature. There's tons of resources regarding Khorne. He hasn't changed much since his Warhammer 8th edition, or even Warhammer 40k if you come from that background. He's still very much the same. The way demonhood works a little bit has changed in AOS, so I'll cover a video that's just about demons and demonhood to kind of go into those differences that narratively seem to be important, not so much on the tabletop as far as rules go, but narratively they do. It's very fascinating. So we'll go into that a little later, but I want you to take some time this week, try to learn something interesting about Khorne, and maybe look at his models and their war scrolls. Try to find new and unique combinations of things that really bring this character to life. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about any other AOS topic, go ahead and click subscribe and leave a comment there down below and let me know what you would like to learn about, and I will go sift through these in the next week and